Why does every character have to be trans? Look, I get it. As an annoying trans myself, I will admit that I have a tendency to project my own experiences onto just about every fictional character that I can get my hands on. And I've heard the feedback, I'm listening, I'm learning. So, how about I cut you a deal? I will stop claiming every coming-of-age self-acceptance story as my own if you give me just one. That way, I'm in my own little corner. You don't have to worry about me anymore. Sound like a plan? Deal? Good? Shake on it? Cool. Now that we've come to an agreement, let me tell you about how the protagonist of the most watched original title in Netflix history is now claimed by the trans community. Tricked him again. Haha, another win for the tricky trans. Stupid. Hi, this is Maru. Welcome back to the channel. All joking aside, it's important to remember that this is a headcanon, and headcanons are just that, in your head. So just because I really like the idea of Rumi being trans, that doesn't stop you from interpreting her through any other lens. She could be interracial, neurodivergent, have literal body scarring, maybe the demon patterns are a metaphor for how you have to hide your intimate knowledge of the Five Nights at Freddy's lore. To each their own, and thanks to fan creations, we're all able to coexist. But if you're curious about why memes like this are going around, or want to know why the transes are being so vocal about this one, here's a little explainer. So you can learn more. You like learning, right? Spoilers ahead. Don't say I didn't warn ya. Okay, hopefully you're on board at this point because I have to talk about this movie. I mean, I knew I was gonna love this thing, Totally Spies meets Hannah Montana, and they got twice on the soundtrack, and Audrey Nuna. Yeah. But oh my gosh, the story hit so hard. And immediately, like first watch, there were so many parallels to the trans experience that I just could not ignore. Parallels which Maggie Kang, the original creator and one of the directors of the film, has openly invited us to draw. In this Salon interview, she talks about the queer community and queer identity being one of the things that they had in mind back when they were crafting Rumi's story. So it's not just based on nothing, okay? But okay, it's time for me to give an actual take. So my thesis for this video is that Rumi's story serves as a perfect allegory for that of a stealth trans woman. Trans woman as in she was born with male or intersex sexual characteristics, but is more comfortable identifying as a woman. Stealth as in she has already gone through the process of transition, and she keeps the fact that she's transgender a secret from everyone else. Her fellow members, her fans, and everyone she meets believe that she is cisgender. She was born with the sexual characteristics that other women have, and thus never had to go through a gender transition. To explain that in the simplest of terms, in the movie K-pop Demon Hunters, Rumi is literally a human who is hiding her half-demon ancestry. She has immutable demon characteristics that have been present since birth but have grown over time. These characteristics are highly misunderstood and stigmatized, so she goes to great lengths to cover them up, as they could lead to her being ousted from society. She excels at fitting into her role in society as a human pop star and demon hunter, and thus grows to hate the demon part of herself and do whatever she can to eliminate it. However, by the end of the movie, she's able to accept this demon side as a part of herself, showing her demonic traits openly and being accepted by her friends and by society. A stealth trans woman is a woman who is hiding her assigned male birth sex. She likewise has physical characteristics that are associated with boys and men from birth, which develop and become more noticeable during puberty. For a stealth trans woman, it's not that male sexual characteristics are necessarily stigmatized, if anything it's the opposite. Specifically, it's her transness that's stigmatized. The fact that her physical characteristics don't line up with what's expected of someone who presents as a woman. Now, the reason why many trans people live stealth in the real world is often a lot more nuanced than just they hate themselves. Physical violence is a real threat, and with anti-trans hatred on the rise, it's easy to see why someone who's able to go stealth would do so for their own safety. However, external stigma creating internalized self-hatred is something that many trans and queer people do cope with, and that's the specific type of trans story that K-pop Demon Hunters serves as an allegory for. There's certainly a lot of other ways to read Rumi as queer, but I have a few reasons for why this is my favorite take. And no, it's not just because I'm a trans woman, okay? Let me teach you, become smart with me. For one, there's just the heels, nails, blade mascara of it all. Like, Rumi clearly loves to embrace her femininity. A lot of the story of K-pop Demon Hunters has to do with the masks we wear and the lies we tell. And while Rumi is trying to fake perfection and hide her insecurities, she still clearly loves being one of the girls. Rumi is open about who she wants to be. What she wants to hide is a body that is fighting to take that away from her. So, by reading her as a stealth trans woman, we keep things pretty close to the text as presented. She's still just a girly girl in a girl group falling in love with a boy. We're just making the light edit of substituting demon patterns for male secondary sex characteristics. Now you might be saying, why bother with all this stuff?
So that you can even begin to understand a fraction of my pain.
But I see you eyeing the length of this video. If this was all I had to say, it probably wouldn't have been worth breaking it down in a video, and it probably wouldn't have resonated emotionally with me as much as it did. No, this movie is specific. It is raw. It makes me break down crying in tears even though I've already seen it 6 times. So let's get into some of those details, and I want to start with dysphoria. This scene, oh my god! Like, this immediately hit me right in my soul, and I think it's because of the placement of the demon patterns. They perfectly overlap with areas that I and many other trans women are dysphoric about. Dysphoria in this case would be the distress that we feel at the perceived masculinity of these body parts. The shoulders and neck specifically being areas that we might feel more distressed about as we get deeper into a male puberty. You could also read this as her self-perception being warped by this insecurity, causing her to perceive herself as more masculine than she may actually be. I also feel like the body hair metaphor works really well here. Despite the fact that all women grow body hair, beauty standards and societal expectations about hair removal mean that our image of the average cis woman is also pretty distorted towards the hairless side. Plenty of cis women also stress about having body hair. However, trans women are more likely to see body hair as a result of their quote-unquote male biology. And sometimes that isn't fully in their heads, like testosterone definitely makes you grow more hair. And again, this isn't trans women just being insecure. I mean, I am, but as previously stated, there are societal repercussions like violence. It's certainly not black and white. Cis women who are perceived as having masculine traits can also be lumped in with trans women, but trans women are the targets, and we're often doing whatever we can to avoid being questioned. Looking at it through this dichotomy, I see Rumi's experience as being a lot more aligned with the trans woman's. Letting her pattern slip is not just a bad hair day. And while yes, K-pop idols don't really get the luxury of having bad hair days, Rumi's fear here is about her identity being revoked. Replace woman with human and man in a dress with demon in disguise. The spread of these patterns over time also maps onto how many trans people experience dysphoria. We're shown several times that Rumi's patterns when she was younger were much smaller and thus easier to cover up. For many trans people, our dysphoria pre-puberty is a lot easier to manage as well. Most of the visual cues that we use to distinguish between men and women aren't present when we're children, which makes it a lot easier to keep those problem areas hidden and maintain an androgynous appearance when we're kids. But hey, this wouldn't be a video talking about trans issues if we didn't bring up changing rooms! I related to the scenes of Zoe and Mira begging Rumi to join them in the bathhouse so much. I'm very lucky to have had many supportive cis girlfriends over the years, but sometimes that support has turned into pressure to use the women's bathroom or changing room in situations where a gender-neutral option wasn't available. Which, like, I get it, they can see how I'm inconveniencing myself, and I kind of feel like from their perspective, they're like, well, I don't care, so nobody else is gonna care. Which, like, yeah, a lot of people don't care. But if even one person cares, that is a nightmare situation for me. I'm super happy that they were willing to go to bat for me, but I just don't want to take risks like that. Now, there are many other trans women out there who have these things called spines, which allow them to use the women's restroom as they please. But for the most part, we're just trying to get through the day without being perceived, and for that reason, I, like Rumi, try to seek privacy wherever I can. Although I want to make it super clear that I support trans people's right to use whatever restroom or changing room makes them feel comfortable. Rights for thee and not for me. There's nothing inherently predatory about transness, and it sucks that cis people's comfort is prioritized over trans people's safety. Tangent aside, in trans Rumi's case, this is more about stealth. Revealing her body could put her at risk of revealing her transness, especially if she hasn't had genital surgery. And I just hate the position she's in because I relate to it so much. Like, you just want to be easygoing, fun time, hang out with the girls, and you can't. Like, there's this wall there, and it's your body, and it's just something that's out of your control. Continuing our discussion about dysphoria and the physical issues, let's talk about her voice. Rumi's voice is the centerpiece of the movie. It's the tool that she uses to become a pop star, to uplift her fans, and to literally fight evil. How she chooses to use her voice, whether it's to conceal her truth or open up about her struggles, is also the primary internal conflict that she faces in the movie. And her physically losing her voice is also the inciting incident for the external conflict. So yeah, Rumi's voice is very important to K-pop demon hunters, and, as you've probably guessed by me harping on this for so long, vocal issues are a big deal for trans people as well, which is understandable, as it can be one of the first ways that we get gendered. Because of how male puberty causes our voices to deepen, many trans women opt for vocal training or some sort of surgery in order to heighten our voices, and others just kind of make do. And once again, Rumi's behavior around her voice has a lot of parallels to the trans experience. She's super sensitive about minor breaks, and later in the movie, during her darkest moments, she's given this deep demonic reverb. The mask is slipping, all those years of vocal training are falling to the side, and we're hearing what she really sounds like. This interpretation makes the what it sounds like conclusion even more impactful to me. She enters the stage, this public arena, and speaks in her demon voice to everyone, revealing what she's been hiding under the surface. And despite the truth no longer being hidden, she still chooses her ideal self. Her demon voice is there for the world to see, but she embraces the voice that she trained, that she worked on so hard. That's not a fake voice, it's the voice that makes her feel like herself. Are you guys starting to see why I love this movie so much? But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the other times that voice comes out, during her anger. In several of Rumi's low points in the film, her explosive rage is shown to be the indicator that her demon side is coming out. It's this rage that causes Mira and Zoe to point their weapons at her, and it's also what causes Jinu to call her a demon. In a trans reading, the rage would mean that people are reading her as a man and not as a woman. Women in general are often expected not to display anger and are judged harshly if they do. And because of that association, when a trans woman shows anger, well, she's a man now. There's a reason that trans women yelling or losing their cool, especially if they have a deep voice, end up circulating as cringe content, mobilizing people against us. Which is really messed up, because anger is a very necessary and healthy emotion. It's also interesting that a lot of minoritized people, the people who have reasons to be angry, are the ones that are expected not to show anger. Do we live in a society? But yeah, specifically the expression of anger leading to someone losing their identity, no longer being human, becoming a demon, no longer being a woman, becoming a man, really cements this parallel in my head. So yeah, now that I've covered all the surface level parallels between Rumi and the trans experience, it's time to talk about the demons. Now I will admit, the demons do complicate this reading quite a bit. There are plenty of other series where demons or vampires end up being a great metaphor for the queer community, but K-pop Demon Hunters demons aren't quite as neutral or misunderstood as these other depictions. While we don't know everything about how these demons work, from what we understand based on what we see in the movie, they almost all seem to be suffering from some sort of shame or misery that allows Guima to manipulate them to his will. They move in lockstep like an army and are serving an evil overlord. They're much closer to what conservatives might imagine the alphabet mafia is like, but if you've ever been in the queer community for more than a day, you know that we do not move in lockstep. Unfortunately so. Demons definitely do seem to be some sort of oppressed underclass, and it seems like sequels to the movie are definitely going to have to delve into this, but for our purposes, I don't think it's super helpful to look at them as the gays. This is why straight Jinu still works with a trans Rumi reading. I'm super down for a queer Jinu reading. I've seen a lot of people calling him and Rumi bi for bi, and I'd be super interested to see if any trans men are able to relate to him. It's certainly possible that his desire to become a musician while trapped in a destitute life could be seen as him wanting to escape his society at all costs in order to express his queerness, even if that meant betraying his family. However, I prefer to side with this auntie. This is straight boy shenanigans. She's not even my type, gross, shut up. K-pop Demon Hunters is a story about shame and stigma. And while Jinu and the other demons who might feel shame for their actions deserve to overcome that shame, Rumi is clearly unique as someone who was born this way. Yet despite this distinction, she gets lumped in with the criminals, the thieves, the lowlifes, and is assumed to be working on behalf of some sinister entity. Yep, that sounds like being transgender to me. I also just like this reading because the idea that Huntrix is running around and murdering queer people is kind of crazy. Trans Rumi and fictional demons who maybe they die, maybe they just poof and respawn and we just don't really think about the consequences, can coexist. Okay, now that we've built our foundation, I would love to get into the story of K-pop Demon Hunters and the type of trans experience it reflects. And what better place to start than my favorite song in the whole soundtrack? It's Golden, baby! And I swear to you, this song is so trans. And I'm gonna tell you why, bar for bar. I was a ghost, I was alone. Yes, I'm going to be singing a lot here, you're welcome. Now, of course we understand that Rumi is literally alone at the start of her journey. Because Celine is unable to accept and affirm her, there's a wall between them that means Rumi feels isolated even when they're together. But it's the ghost part in particular that really gets me. This is the exact wording that a lot of trans people, including myself, would describe our pre-transition experience as being like. Floating, ethereal, disconnected from reality. There's actually a phenomenon known as depersonalization that we use to describe this. It's a form of dissociation where you're detached from your own self. You're still operating and piloting your body, reacting to things normally, but you almost feel like you're watching yourself from a distance. There's a numbness, a disconnect. Things are just sort of happening, and you aren't really a part of them. Due to societal pressures, most trans kids end up learning how to act in ways that fit more with their assigned gender, but that act comes at the cost of living. So we don't. We perform, watching ourselves from a distance. I don't know Korean, but I tried. So, to my understanding, this roughly translates to the darkened road ahead, which again reflects that trans kid experience of hopelessness. When we grow up without having transition or living authentically presented to us as options, this sense of emptiness and pointlessness can sink in. Without options for a future that appeal to us, it's just an endless stretch of darkness. Given the throne, I didn't know how to believe I was a queen that I'm meant to be. What's happening to the Han Moon? Okay, so I'm really projecting on this one, but please follow me. So queen is obviously a huge word in the queer community. Yes, queen, drag queen, slay queen, we get it. So you grow up your whole life hopeless, hiding your true self, internalizing this narrative that you're fundamentally wrong, and then all of a sudden you get a new narrative, one of love and acceptance and the ultimate antidote to shame, pride. You go from people gossiping about how you might be gay, teasing and shading you, to showers of praise and admiration about how you're a queen and slay and eat and yes, honey, boots, house down, whatever. Now, this is all good. I think that positivity and acceptance culture for queer people is super awesome, and I participate in it because I know exactly what the suffering is like, and I think every queer person who has had to endure that deserves some pride. But emotionally, internally, it can feel pretty jarring. And it does honestly kind of feel like being put on some sort of throne or pedestal. Suddenly you have a whole new set of gendered expectations, many of which you slot into perfectly, but others you might struggle with. And now that you're out, you're also kind of a representative for your identity. At least where I live, I'm often the first open trans person that most people have met. And when interacting with a person like that, it can feel like the burden of proof is on you to prove that not only are you the gender identity that you say you are, but that all trans people are the gender identity that they say they are. There should be no right way to act for any gender. People are people, but when you deviate from expectations, you kind of get the feeling that people are writing off not only you, but trans people as a whole. So there's pressure, there's performance. Small daily interactions can feel like you're being put on stage. So yeah, it's like this gendered imposter syndrome. I know this is who I am, I feel it so strongly on the inside, but I feel a lot of external pressure to get everyone else on board. And it totally mirrors the imposter syndrome that Rumi's talking about in this line. Oh, I'm done hiding, now I'm shining like I'm born to be. Skipping to the chorus, this is a beautiful refutation of that imposter syndrome. This line just gives me that mad confidence that you need to just go out there and be yourself no matter the doubts. My absolute favorite, and I sing it all of the time. Waited so long to break these walls down, to wake up and feel like me. Put these patterns all in the past now, and finally live like the girl that I see. Okay, I feel like this part is describing the gap of time between realizing, coming to terms with your gender identity, and actually being able to come out. It can take so long and be so painful. When you're not in denial or repressing, but you're not able to be openly yourself, like you just feel everything and it's so sharp. And then there's those patterns. Old habits die hard, and sometimes survival mechanisms you picked up pre-transition can linger, even when you look super confident and put together on the outside. So, let's reflect on what this song broadly means for trans Rumi. This basically works as a covert coming out song. Rumi was able to come to terms with her identity, transition, and literally become a pop star. She's not just a woman, she's the woman, likely the model of femininity for so many people in society. But we've seen the movie, right? This is only the start of her story. This is the I Want song at the beginning of the musical. Rumi wants no more hiding to be the truth, but she believes that her true self is so unacceptable that her only choice is to change that truth. Why is that? Why doesn't she trust Mira and Zoe? They're so close. So, working in a little sneaky character analysis in the back end of this video, I think Rumi's secrecy has a lot to do with her relationship with Celine. Not just Celine literally telling her that Mira and Zoe wouldn't accept her, but because she doesn't want to replicate the dynamic that she has with Celine with them. And that's because, despite being out to Celine, Celine is not a safe space for Rumi. Celine is hyper-protective of her adopted daughter. She places more value on protecting Rumi and keeping her safe than she does on accepting her. Because of this, we see she's not even able to look at Rumi. When she covers up her patterns, it's like she's hiding them from herself. In a trance reading, that leaves us with this interesting dynamic where even though Celine helped Rumi transition and become her ideal self, no matter how feminine Rumi may appear to everyone else, she will always see her as a man. Or just as something lesser, someone being deceitful about their true nature. Or even if we don't want to go that extreme, we can see how her paranoia around telling Rumi to cover up makes it feel like any slip up will mean Rumi will turn into a man. At any moment, someone might notice, and then it's all over. So even if she doesn't actually think Rumi is a man in her heart of hearts, she's essentially treating her like one, which probably means Rumi feels pretty bad when she's around her. Or at least just like she's under a lot of pressure. Contrast that with Zoe and Mira. While Rumi is hiding the factual truth of her transness from them, she is 100% more authentic around them when it comes to being herself. This is her safe space where she's able to just be a woman. This to me highlights a paradox that's somewhat unique to transness. When we talk about hiding parts of ourselves as someone who's neurodivergent, queer, or multicultural, masking means that we're trading our comfort for some form of societal acceptance. However, for stealth trans people, there's kind of this weird twilight zone of masking. Because we're often making such a concentrated effort on the external, doing things to change how people view our gender, it sometimes seems like the mask itself is the end goal. And while passing or being perceived as cis does feel great, you're getting gendered correctly without having to explain yourself and enjoying a brief escape from transphobia, that escape is an illusion, and it's the reason why passing can make me really uncomfortable sometimes. Anytime that I'm in a situation where I'm having multiple interactions with people, it's going to be really uncomfortable unless I know they know that I'm trans. Even for trans people who aren't intending to be stealth, being read correctly as their gender risks us being accused of being deceptive. So it's kind of a lose-lose. I would love for everyone to see me as no different from a cis woman, but because of transphobia, I'm paranoid of being perceived as a deceptive trans woman. This is the price Rumi feels like she has to pay in order to have girl time with Mira and Zoe. Unfortunately for Rumi, while her reasons for lying are very sympathetic, she's still lying, and that lying also has a cost. She hurts her friends, pushing them further and further away as she isolates herself. And given that these seem to be her only close relationships, I could imagine her almost seeing it as like a binary. Even if Mira and Zoe were to accept her, they might just turn into more Celines, agreeing to hide her identity but never really looking at her the same, engaging with the paranoia and no longer treating her like a regular woman. So then we get Jinu! So again, he may or may not be straight and cis. There's certainly some recognized queer subtext going on in this scene, and you could interpret him covering for Rumi as understanding the pain of outing and not wanting someone else to be outed. But regardless of why, Jinu is the first person other than Celine that Rumi is out to. And her mindset starts to change, quickly. After spending her whole life with this immense pressure to hide, be perfect, fix it, she's able to just be herself. They're in love, Your Honor! So, Rumi and Jinu have found each other and are giving each other the voice of hope to inspire themselves to overcome shame. However, Jinu still has to contend with Guima, the voice of shame inside his head. Rumi doesn't hear Guima because she has her own personal Guima, Celine. A lot of fans of this movie like to hate on Celine, and I kinda get it. Like, why is she like this? Why can't she look at her? Why can't she love her? All of her! Because of historical erasure, it's easy to forget that a lot of people like Celine and of her generation knew a queer person, and that person suffered and died and they weren't able to support them. And for a lot of people, the lesson that they learn from that is that if I'm strong and if I'm able to keep it bottled inside, I'll be okay. The queer person was weak and they let their truths leak out, and that's what led to shame and stigma and death. But what a lot of people miss, especially non-queer people, is that without knowing what was going on internally, you don't fully understand the other person. you're just projecting. Celine feels a lot of shame, but unlike Rumi, she's not half demon, she's not trans. She doesn't understand the pain of denying Rumi her identity. Rumi's whole identity is built on this parental rejection wound. Performing and hiding this truth about herself gave her purpose, gave her everything. And when she fails, the supposed transphobes that Celine was trying to protect her from don't show up. Instead, it's Celine that Rumi asks to kill her, because that's been the demon, that's been the Guima in her head the whole time. And when Celine goes back into covered up mode, that's when Rumi's image shatters. I know a lot of people were confused at how Rumi was able to jump from the depths of depression into singing the hope song that defeats the bad guy, and I'll admit, it definitely felt like we needed a couple more scenes there, but this change does make sense, right? Rumi thought that everyone, including Celine, would hate her and try to kill her. But here, she finally sees Celine for who she really is. Not an all-knowing mentor, but a scared, frazzled woman just trying to maintain some semblance of control. It's not a warm, loving embrace, but it wakes her up to how much all of this is in her head. I think this is a struggle that a lot of queer people with difficult parental relationships can really relate to. Parental figures who love you and want what's best for you, but due to bigoted myths or societal mistreatment of queer people, end up becoming the thing that is most damaging to their child's self-esteem, leaving us to build that self on our own. Second coming outs are awkward. They're messy. In the stealth metaphor, Rumi is going from being a proud, inspirational beacon of femininity to being open about not only her transness, but the fact that she didn't trust people with it. And that's kind of weird. In what it sounds like, the girls sing, "So we were cowards, so we were liars." And as a coward and a liar, I relate to this on a really personal level. I've been out and open as a trans person for years at this point, and I really try to make a point of being loud and confident and unapologetic about my identity. I know people like that who inspired me, and I've had people reach out to me and say that it inspired them, which is really meaningful. It's important work, especially at times like this, and it's part of the reason that I want to make videos like this. Even so, it took me until earlier this year to come out as a lesbian, and that complicates my narrative. In my first coming out narrative, I'm a poor, innocent baby, victim of societal oppression, but in the second one, I'm an outspoken voice for being yourself who wasn't being herself. K-pop Demon Hunters isn't just the story of coming out, it's the story of coming out and coming out and coming out and coming out and coming out. Every time I meet a new person, it's another chance for me to go back into the closet. If they don't know that I'm trans, I'm suddenly stealth. And if I don't say something, then they're gonna assume that I'm attracted to men. But I don't want to go down that road again. I don't want to live in shame and fear. And I feel like there's no point in trying to inspire people if I'm lying to them. Safety is important, like this is all situational, but when you find that safe space, that community, those people that are going to accept you, sometimes visibility is worth the risk. Passing has always been a survival strategy. It was never the goal. As trans people, we'll always be our most beautiful when we're embracing the change and imperfection of becoming. So, K-pop Demon Hunters isn't the story of Rumi coming out as trans. It's the story of her coming out as shameful, broken, messy, complicated, but willing to open herself up to connection. Of course, pride is important. No, not that kind of pride, boo Saja boys. But that pride won't carry us through everything. We also need a healthy dose of self-acceptance. Letting those jagged edges hit the light. That way we'll truly be shining. Like we're born to be.
Stop the song!
Thank you so much for watching this video. I know I got very rambly, but I hope my point was coherent enough. Real hunters will understand, I'm sure. If you want more of my thoughts on K-pop Demon Hunters, you can check out this episode of the Nobody Leaves podcast where me and my friend react to it for the first time. Keep in mind that this was the first time that I'd ever seen this movie. I'm on watch number 6 by now. And apologies for my co-host who's a loser and gave it a bad score. Feel free to bully him into changing it, he definitely deserves it. If you found me to be really cool and funny and insightful, subscribe to this channel. I'm still trying to get my footing in this space, but I'm having a lot of fun. I have a lot more videos for the girls, gays, and days coming up, so definitely stay tuned. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me a sparkle emoji, and I'd love to hear your headcanons of the different K-pop Demon Hunters characters in the comments. I'll see you next time, and remember, happy queers, happy Han Moon!